Welcome, dear audience, to This Week in Clown World, the video series dedicated to reliving the events of the simulation because yes, it really happened, and no, we weren't dreaming. Well, that was a week that will week forever, because as the peasants went about their daily lives, peasanting all around the place, our dear leaders did the dumbest she-hide ever dumbed in the history of dumbing. And there is no better example of the weak men cycle that we currently reside in than the events that took place in the Soviet Kingdom. Because imagine waking up as a tampon and suddenly becoming the Prime Minister of a failed state and thinking you're legitimately a global leader. Yes, as the Orange Man took blast at a South African president with literal proof of politicians calling for a white genocide, our very little Keir Starling got to pissing off the baked bean peasants again and making our once fine lands into an international laughingstock. Man, I used to take pride in this country. What a dumbass I was. It was once said to be British is to win the lottery of life. Yeah, well, all you're winning these days is a diversity graping from the boat people and then just straight up getting stabbed. Anyway, enough of that. What happened? Well, selling our last assets, of course, because we may have had a really successful empire that revolutionized the world, but because it was an empire in colonialism, we now have to pay for it all thanks to the never-ending door of weak men in parliament. Yes, the deal to give the Chagos Islands to Mauritius for free and then rent the island back off them because a Chinese communist told us to do it. Oh lordy, just to think 80 years ago millions of men from these isles spilt blood for this country. And if you're wondering what in the British tea or fuck I'm on about, well, let me splooge into your gaping holes with a nugget of information. Basically, back in the Empire days, us plucky Brits beat up Napoleon pretty bad, so we took a whole load of his land, and some of that was the Chagos Islands. So we told Mauritius, one of our other colonies, to look after those little islands over 1,000 miles away from them, while we went off ass-kicking across the high seas. But then we got bored of winning, and told Mauritius they can have their own country back again, and we'll pay them $3 million to take the Chagos Islands back off their hands. Fine, deal done, it was never theirs to begin with, they were just custodians. Just be happy you got all those millions for free. But suddenly the strong men of the war died and the weak men took their place. So come Keir Starling, who read an advisory note from a Chinese communist at the UN saying, you should totally give those islands back to a country who never owned them, although you don't really have to because there's no legal obligation. Would be really cool if you stripped yourself of all your assets though. My God, thought Stalin, I better do this at once, and until my last breath I'll make the British people pay for it. Everyone's totally going to love me for it. Yeah, so after a whole load of dealing, the traitorous government have handed the islands to Mauritius, then immediately rented back from them for the privilege of 99 years. And to sweeten a deal for Mauritius who never owned the islands, we will pay them fucking billions for it. Yay, this is exactly what everybody wanted. I bet all those Labour voters feel real proud of themselves right now. It's just a shame that Keir Starling is under investigation for lying to the public about how much it's going to cost us. And this all happened at a time when inflation is going up while interest rates are still relatively high. So basically stagflation. But how did this happen? Didn't we learn our lessons from back in the 70s when the last Labour Party caused it? Well, obviously not, because Labour took one look at the economy and said, you know what we need? More taxes. While at the same time, Rachel from Complaints, the Chancellor of the Exchequer who lied on her CV about being an economist, but still somehow ended up keeping her job, is feeding us a cum sandwich of she's going to grow the economy by increasing taxes. Don't know how that works, but hey, baked beans on toast is a national dish, and that's pretty much all we can afford these days. Anyway, any other shite going on in these failed lands? Oh yes, how could I forget? Remember that time, back in better years, when the Soviet Kingdom democratically sent a mandate to Parliament that we don't want to be under the control of the European Union because they're no longer about trade and cooperation, but instead a bunch of bureaucratic asshats siphoning off state sovereignty to become a United States of Europe with even more regulations and taxes slowly decaying everything that our ancestors built for us. Well boys, the people spoke and our leaders didn't listen. My God, what has happened now? Well, Keir Starling, the man who just last week became the Starminator, telling the peasants that mass uncontrolled immigration is damaging the soul of this failed state, he decided he would give it a week, and oh boy, he went straight back to soy facing and pretty much backdoored us back into the EU again, only this time we are their cum dumpster of rules and regulations, and we'll have to pay for it for the pleasure of zero saying anything. Yes, as the economy is tanking and is only being held up by GDP figures massaged by immigration into the country, soy-faced Stalin has been desperate to get as many trade deals as possible to make it look like everything isn't on fire and grandma is absolutely fine and not getting finger banged by a Somalian. So he tied the Soviet peasants to the EU carbon scheme, where the companies that are already on a never-ending period of shitting money out to pay extortionist taxes now have to buy carbon credits if they accidentally emit a little too much CO2 dictated by the EU. You know, if they have a good year with lots of production and all that, then say goodbye to those profits you made because daddy government wants that money to change the weather. And if you're a British fisherman who loves a bit of that cod, well, you better be ready to share the haddock and all that with the damn dirty French, because the EU demanded rights to our fishing waters, and poor soy-faced Stalin immediately bent his knees and rim-licked all those foreigners. Because the UK isn't a country, it's just a trading outpost serving the lowest bidder. But in a turn of events that nobody saw coming, the selling point to the British people was that we now get to use e-gates at airports, even though not every country has them and no one's obliged to do it. So what the fuck is he talking about? But if you are a British man and you're feeling like everything's fucking us hard right now, well, take a trip down the NHS, because we could all go protect ourselves with a gonorrhea vaccine. You can't be mad if it ain't burning, right? And talking of gonorrhea and men, looks like little Doctor Who didn't give Russell T Davies that reach around, because oh lordy lordy, he's just got fired and is now no longer a very proper British doctor man who was only hired to tick boxes on those diversity boards. And you may be asking, why did that little British man from British lands get the bull sack? He was great in that non-binary alien show. Well, dear audience, this week was the Eurovision Song Contest, where each country votes for the country that they dislike the least. So the UK and Germany pretty much come last every time. But for reasons completely unknown to anybody, Israel is now European, and so is Australia. And that pissed me coochie right off. Not the upside down feathers, they're proper cool. It was the fact Israel exists as a state. So straight up refused to present the jury results or some kind of she-hite to the BBC, renowned for hiring nonsense and protecting them, booted British man right out of their pedo palace. Which must have been really hard for them, considering they just skewed their diversity targets. My oh my, I am really playing that violin right now, although you can't hear it on the account it's so small, we're talking fucking plank level. But something else did happen during this Eurovision Song Contest. The simulation tried error correcting by making Austria beat Israel. Holy shit snacks, Batman, now everybody's gonna get into art school and go goose-stepping across Berlin. Hey, maybe one day I'll be Chancellor of Germany myself. And my first decree is to invade Italy because they made the Fiat 500 and I fucking hate those cars. But before we leave this utter shithole of a country for greener pastures, let's just take a moment to remember the two police officers who valiantly pepper sprayed, beat and tasered a 92-year-old man in a wheelchair who only has one leg, armed with a butter knife, and was also in a very confused state owing to multiple health issues. God bless those coppers, they're definitely protecting the public from, let me just check my notes again, a 92-year-old wheelchair amputee with severe health issues armed with a butter knife. Hey, I guess it presents more of a danger than all those Pakistani grape gangs the police covered up, eh? Yeah, I hope they get sent down. Alright then, moving on swiftly. Romania have a new president after a totally free and fair election, and it wasn't that really popular guy who won it because they banned him from running due to a couple of TikTok accounts promoting his campaign originating from Russia. Because that definitely would subvert the entire democracy of a country. And it wasn't the really populist guy who won in the first round either, because of course he was really popular. It was the EU-aligned globalist who unexpectedly got promoted to President Jode, and no doubt they had mail-in voting too. Yeah, more of the same for them then. Just gotta wait for the how we fortified the election op-eds. Meanwhile, in a Maryland, Biden's got cancer, something that he told us to our faces that he had, and then the entire media apparatus closed rank and told all the peasants he was just speaking out of turn. You know, because of the dementia. And I'm gonna be honest here, Biden is a corrupt asshat and an empty vessel for the bad actors. Namely his wife Anna Barmna. Probably Big Mike too. However, best of luck to him, I don't wish those kind of ills on people. But I can't help connect some dots here. He said he was going to cure cancer and then told us all that he had cancer. And he did. Not cure cancer, he literally had it. Then he also said that him alongside the Democrats had organized the greatest election fraud network ever networked in the history of networking. Maybe it was the dementia, or maybe it was all Freudian. But my god, he was telling us the truth the entire time, wasn't he? This may explain the reason they photoshopped Biden into those Easter photos, and I still can't believe they actually did that. But over in the White House, where the old man smell has been replaced with the musk of Diet Coke and cheeky double McCheeseburgers with fries, the orange man pulled yet another classic, here's the evidence, and the dirty media are a bunch of lying maggot scumbags. Now, as we're all aware, being a refugee, you have to either be non-white or Ukrainian. There are no other exceptions allowed. So when the orange man took note of the South African farmer situation and helped them out by not only shining a sun-sized fucking light on the situation, but also accepted South African refugees, there was an international meltdown the likes we have never seen before. And it all hinged on that special word, genocide. Because, alright, it's a strong word to describe it. Not all the farmers have been brutally murdered, just some of them. But make no mistake about it, it's all heading that way, and when the weak men keep pulling out their hierarchy of hate crimes in 10 simple steps, you know, the one where they claim making a joke about a Jewish fella sniffing pennies out of a floorboard can lead to global genocide, for some reason that doesn't apply when the victim is white. So in comes the orange man with the gigaballs who sat with the South African president in the White House and showed the entire world videos of one of their largest political parties literally calling for the mass murder of white farmers. Seems like pretty conclusive evidence that there is a massive problem there, right? Something that the world should know about because last time I checked, genocide isn't cool. When if you thought global recognition was warranted, then you would be wrong. Dead wrong with AIDS, because according to the media, not only is it all a right-wing conspiracy theory with video evidence, but Trump set this whole thing up as an ambush. Yes, mysteriously every media outlet just independently shitted out the exact same terminology and headline structure. Smells real fucking sus to me, boy. Almost like the media are propaganda essentially controlled by global manipulators who are desperate to regain the narrative after independent media forcefully shoved the dildo of truth down their throats and no one trusts CNN anymore. It's just desperate now, like cringe desperate. They had their chance, they lost, now they need to log into Minecraft and go die in a virtual fire. Alright then, anything else going worthy of note? Yeah, some bloke was so angry at his dad painting his mother's walls white with a salty surprise resulting in him being shat out 9 months later from her vagina, that he quite literally blew up a fertility clinic in a Ford Focus packed with explosives. What in the name of hillbilly fuck is going on here? Well, it's nihilism, of course, the latest trend where you hate your life so much that you'll destroy other people's hopes of having children. What a complete twat. This shite is yet another symptom of a culture that is propagandized by anti-family and anti-natalist rhetoric. You know, all those articles and videos about dinks and sinks where the people for some reason feel the need to tell everyone that they ain't got kids and it feels so good, which is a really weird thing to brag about. Almost as if they're being paid to do it. I mean, I've recently taken up a new job and on the induction week, we were all talking about our kids and how much fun they are because my god, they are fun. And this woman says, I haven't got any kids, thank god, I'd rather just keep my dogs. To an entire room of mothers and fathers all talking fondly about how funny their damn kids are. You look like a right twat, mate. And before I get the rage torrent of comments, I ain't talking about those people who just don't want kids. That is absolutely fine. It's those weird creatures who will drop their nuts to tell everyone how much they don't want them. It's like, what do you want, a fucking medal? No one cares. Or in this case, blowing up a fertility clinic. But luckily, no one was hurt apart from the domestic terrorist. Well, that was fun. Can't wait for next week where Keir Stalin sells the Soviet kingdom out even more because boy I love getting teabagged by taxes and foreigners, and Keir Stalin likes playing soggy biscuit with Ukrainians. Big shout out to my boys and guys. My mummy told me not to kiss the bigots, but she didn't realise I don't listen to women, so pucker up boys, we're going to Paris. Love you all very much, Lee.
Subscribe button.
Is always right.